Senator Nash.
President, my question is to the Minister representing the Minister for Trade and Competitiveness and the Minister for Defence, Senator Bob Carr. I refer the Minister to my unanswered questions of 1 November regarding the government's cancellation of its long-intended purchase of South Korea's Land 17 self-propelled howitzer. In particular, I refer to the Minister's assurance about his cordial conversation with Korean Foreign Minister Kim when I asked whether the government's decision would have diplomatic, trade or commercial fallout for Australia, given the Korean government's closeness to its defence industry. Aren't free trade agreement negotiations with Korea now stalled because the capricious cancellation of this purchase prompted Korea to increase its insistence on the inclusion in the FTA of investor-state resolution clauses to mitigate exactly against this sort of sovereign risk? And will the Minister answer the parts of my question he took on notice on November 1?
The Minister representing the Minister for Trade and Competitiveness and the Minister representing the Minister for Defence, Senator Bob Carr.
Well, Mr President, I'm very grateful for the question because I did deceive the House when I gave that answer about the impact of this cancellation. I referred to one conversation I had with the Foreign Minister Kim of South Korea, and I mentioned that in that cordial conversation held only days before I answered the question in the Senate, that he hadn't raised the question of this contract. It wasn't as full and, I confess, as honest an answer as I might have given, because I neglected, Mr President, was that an interruption? Was that an interjection? I neglected to draw the attention of the Senate to four other conversations, no fewer than 4 other conversations with the Foreign Minister of South Korea where the matter had not been raised with him. One of them was when he came to Canberra, I would say 3 or 4 months ago, for bilateral discussions. The matter didn't figure in those discussions. Another meeting was in New York in September, when we discussed a range of issues. He didn't raise that matter. There was a telephone conversation not long after I assumed this job where, again, he didn't raise the matter. If it were a matter of bilateral concern—
Order. Resume your seat, Senator Bob Carr. Senator Nash.
Thank you, Mr President. I rise on a point of order on relevance. I asked the Minister about the investor-state resolution clauses, which he is yet to refer to in his answer. If I could ask you to draw the Minister's attention to the question and have him respond appropriately.
The question was broader than that, and the Minister is responding to the question. The Minister still has 32 seconds remaining to address the question. The Minister.
Mr President, the point about investor-state dispute resolution is it is only one of several issues to be resolved. Other outstanding issues include, for example, the terms of access for Australian agricultural products. Should that be disregarded? Should we not persist in talking about terms of access for agricultural products? Is that the view of the National Party, that this should not be a concern of the Australian government? On the contrary, Mr President, it is the view of the Australian Trade Minister that that should be pursued.
Time has expired. Senator Nash.
Thank you, Mr President. Given the government's dishonourable cancellation of the Land 17 self-propelled howitzer project, is it no surprise that the Koreans are insisting on the inclusion of the investor-state resolution clauses in the free trade agreement to protect their industries from the sovereign risk of dealing with the Australian government? Isn't this derailment of the free trade agreement negotiations now jeopardising Australia's $770 million beef export market to Korea?
Order. Now, when there's silence, we'll proceed. Now, I remind honourable senators that the talk across the chamber is disorderly. Senator Nash is waiting to have the Foreign Minister answer the question. The Foreign Minister.
Mr President, I'm advised. Well, the Liberal Party would like it said that they take the case for Australian business, but in fact, Australian business should be given the final word on this very matter. The Trade Minister has received a letter from the Australian Industry Group commending the position he's taking on ISDS, received on November the 14th, in strong support of the Australian government's position on ISDS. Well, that's the. Well, you might object, you might cavil, but that you might attack the organisation I'm quoting, but that is the body speaking for Australian investor opinion, and they commend the position taken by my colleague, the Trade Minister. They support it on this matter, specifically on this matter. And I might say that the Australian government, our colleague, the Minister for Trade, is working very, very hard to conclude the free trade agreement.
Senator Nash.
Thank you, Mr President. Does the minister agree that the fact the disgraced member for Dobell, Craig Thompson, is Secretary of the Australia-Republic of Korea Parliamentary Friendship Group simply adds insult to injury as far as Korea is concerned? Does the minister think it appropriate that a visiting South Korean parliamentary delegation, already concerned about Australia's sovereign risk, be entertained by Mr Thompson as the Gillard government-supported secretary of this group?
The minister.
Mr. President, when all allowances are made, Mr. President, that this is the end of the parliamentary session, it's been an exhausting week. The questions have been used, they've been misused. It's been a tactical disaster for those opposite for 2 or 3 weeks now, 2 or 3 sitting weeks. A tactical disaster. We do know that oppositions get to the bottom of the barrel towards the last sitting days. I can't help the Honourable. I've got no idea with Mr Craig Thompson, as chairman of that group.
Order, Senator Bob Carr. Order. Resume your seat. Senator Ian McDonald.
Of order of direct relevance. We've had this minister 30 seconds, half the allotted time, giving a critique on the questioner and nowhere near going. Now, Mr President, you have to stop these people treating question time as a joke.
Order. There's no order. Senator Collins. Order. Senator Collins.
Thank you, Mr President. Unfortunately, if Senator McDonald had listened rather than jump in the way he had, he would have heard the minister answering the question. He stands up and refers to these people in a point of order that doesn't respond. I'm responding to the point of order, Senator Abetz.
Order. Order. Senator Collins, continue. Order.
Yes.
Order. On both sides. Senator Collins. Senator Collins.
Thank you,
Continue with your point of order.
Thank you, Mr President. The minister was quite reasonably responding to the nature of what was an absolutely ridiculous question, talking about parliamentary friendship associations in relation to South Korea and any suggested role of Mr Thompson is ludicrous, is absolutely ludicrous. But unfortunately, Senator McDonald shows again, as has other senators in the last couple of days, this end of session, they simply cannot hear what is occurring in the chamber. The minister was answering the question.
Order. The minister was answering the question, and the minister still has 31 seconds remaining to address the question if he so chooses.
Well, Mr President, let me confess that I was under the impression that the member was president of another friendship group, that is the North Korean Friendship Society, spending his time going to folk dancing festivals in Pyongyang and tours of gulags in that benighted country. I don't know. How would I know who is chair of the North Korean Friendship Group? And I would. Well, I can't take her at her word. It could be, as far as I'm concerned, it could be a fiercely contested position.
Order. Time has expired.